Hi, I'm Connie, and I'm one of the history teachers here at New College. And I'm here today to give you a little taster of what it's like to do our British and European history course. So, firstly, welcome to History at New College. We have three different courses. So, we offer a History GCSE, but lots of you will have already done that. And we also offer two modern history courses. So, we have 20th century British and American history and 20th century British and European history. All of our A-level courses are on the humanities pathway, which fit nicely in with things like ancient history, classical civilization, government and politics, which I also teach, philosophy and religious studies. But we're also available to lots of students on things like the social studies pathway, for students to do things like law, on the law and legal pathway as well. It goes to criminology, it goes to sociology, it goes to lots and lots and lots of things, because it really helps you to develop your analytical skills, your source analysis skills, your chronological skills, your writing skills, your communicating skills. And also, it's really interesting because it's some really cool pieces of history that we study on the course. So that's roughly kind of what we offer here. How do we do it? Well, we have normal lessons. Okay, the vast majority of what we do here is teach you in a classroom. So in the first year, you have 4.5 hours a week of history and 5 hours in the second year. In the first year, you will have two teachers. You normally have two teachers in both years. You'll have one teacher who teaches you the British history element, and the other teacher will teach you the European, or if you were doing the American course, the American element. So in the first year, you would have 2 hours a week of British history, and that would be the same in the second year. So you'd probably have one big lesson with that teacher. And then with the other teacher, you probably have two. So in the first year, you have an hour lesson and an hour and a half lesson, and an hour lesson and a 2 hour lesson in the second year. We are a team of three specialist teachers. We all have history degrees. We all work for the exam board doing marking. We're all history nerds, I'm sure they won't mind me saying. So we all really love our subject, and we've all been teaching here together as a team for quite some time. Okay, we do our history A-levels on AQA. The reason why we do this is that you have two exams rather than three. Okay, that does mean that those exams are worth a little bit more, but they're of a nice standardized format. So it makes sense. There are fewer different types of essay that we have to teach. So at GCSE history, you will have had to learn sort of 10, 11 different types of essays. You would have to do your little 12 markers and your 5-mark source questions. There's none of that at A-level. We teach you how to do one standard essay style, 25-mark essays. You do the same style of essay in British as you do in European. And it really helps us to develop those essay writing skills and really support you with that. There are two other types of essay. You have a source question and also extract question, but it's only 3 types of questions. So it makes sense. We all mark for AQA, so we all know exactly what AQA are looking for. You also do coursework, which is worth 20% or non-examined assessment, and you do that at the end of year 12 into the summer of year 13. So the summer of your first year into your second year. This year we managed to get all of our European courseworks done before the summer, which meant that they were marked and they could have them back on their first lesson in September. So that was quite nice for all of them, because they've got their results ready to go, and it's in the bag when they're writing their university applications, and they can talk about their coursework. In addition to this, we like to try and offer you some extra support sessions. So we're really lucky in humanities to have a fab academic instructor who's a super experienced teacher, and he sort of helps you to develop your essay writing skills, teaches you if you're struggling with writing paragraphs, if you're struggling with writing introductions or conclusions, he can help you to do that. And we've got extra support sessions. As well as this, we also try to offer some revision sessions close to the exam. And we've got loads and loads of online sources as well. And actually lockdown and having to teach online has been really beneficial for us in developing extra resources. So we have got a virtual learning environment, or VLE, that has copies of all the PowerPoints and additional reading and all that kind of stuff, everything you could possibly desire. And we've also got now the ability, and we do, to teach on Teams all the time, which means we've got lots of lesson recordings, so you can go back and watch stuff. Videos a little bit like this one, where I natter on in the corner, and you get to have a look at a PowerPoint that's kind of like little revision sessions, but also really useful for skills for coursework. So kind of, I don't know how to do this. Well, I'll just watch the video. That can be really handy. In addition to that, we have a super amazing library or learning resource centre. and they buy us lots and lots and lots of books every year. You can go and ask for them to buy you a book to help with your course. That's cool. They'll do that. And we also have a really large collection of ebooks, including the textbooks. So you don't have to buy the textbook. You can access it online through the college for free. In addition to this, we also have access to online academic journals. We've got a college membership of the Historical Association. They've got an amazing set of podcasts on German history that you can use to revise or to extend your knowledge. Lots and lots of stuff available. In previous years, and hopefully going forward, we've also got good relationships with local universities, and we've gone there to have masterclasses with some of their lecturers and experts. So we had a really interesting session on causes of the First World War at Oxford Brookes last year. We haven't been able to do that this year, neither have we been able to do trips, but we're very much hoping to get those back on track for once we've gotten through this current period. Trips that we often run, we normally go every year to the Imperial War Museum, and we do a special session on their Holocaust exhibit. We also go to the National Archives, which is one of my favourite trips of the year, and we get to go and have a look at the original documents, usually relating to the start of the Cold War, which actually works for both the British unit and the European unit. It's cool things like you get to see Churchill's signature on stuff and the sort of notes that he wrote about people, which I find super cool, but I am a history nerd. We also do some work with the Holocaust Education Trust. So we've taken some students to Auschwitz, and they've then become Holocaust education ambassadors and have sort of run sessions in the local area, which is a really amazing thing to do and look great on their CV. Plus, they really enjoyed doing it. They got an awful lot out of it. It's quite an impressive trip. We'd love to run big international trips. We had some in the pipeline. We haven't been able to this year. I'm hoping that we'll get those back on track in the near future, but I can't promise anything. So what do we actually study then? Well, both the American and the European course have the same British module. So it's a 20th century course. So we do a depth study on Britain in the 20th century. So we look at the second half of the 20th century. We actually start in 1945 to give you some context. So we start with the end of the Second World War and the election of Clement Attlee, have a look at how he revolutionised Britain by building up the welfare state and completely changed the way that we run things, so setting up the NHS and all those kinds of things. And then we track through the history of Britain, having a look at how politics, economics, society and foreign policy changed across the second half of the 20th century and then into the 21st century. So you've got sort of your miners' strikes, you've got the rise of the teenager, you've got the swinging 60s, you've got the Thatcher Revolution, you've got the rule of Tony Blair. All that stuff is on that course. It's a packed course, really interesting, goes super nicely with people who are studying politics in particular. They tend to find those two go super well together, but it's also really good for kind of, you can go home and have a chat about how family members remember it, how friends remember these things. You might even remember like the last couple of years of the course. So it's a good one. It's contemporary. It really helps you to understand the world that we live in today, because it tells you all about how we got there. The European part of the course is German history. Okay, so a lot of you will have studied German history before. Okay, lots of you will have done the classic end of World War One, Weimar Republic, rise of Hitler, World War II. That's the standard set. You tend to do it in year 9, you tend to do it at GCSE. Some of you will have also done the Cold War. What we do is we take that bit that's in the middle and we add a load on the start. So we have a look at how they got there. So we look at the unification of Germany, when Germany became a nation for the first time in 1871. We do look at all the stuff in the middle. So we have a look at the rise of Hitler. We do it at A level, so it's a bit harder. We look at the failure of the Weimar Republic, all that kind of stuff. Whose fault is it that they ended up with Hitler? But then we track it on through, and we spend quite a lot of time looking at how the Allies dealt with Germany after the Second World War. What were they going to do? How they divided it up? Then we have a look at the Cold War, primarily from the West German perspective, but we also do it as more a broad study, and it runs really nicely alongside the British course because it's a very similar period of time, and we can make those comparisons. So we look at sort of how West Germany dealt with the youth, and the youth sort of rejecting the generation above them because they felt that they were all Nazis. We have a look at the rise of terrorism in Germany. We look at all of these kinds of things, but then we have a look at how they managed to bring the two halves of that nation back together in 1991 with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and all of those things. Then for something different, we do our coursework or our NEA on Italy. So we have a look at the unification of Italy. So we start with Napoleon invading Italy, and we track it right through them having popular revolutions, them marching all over the country to try and unify it together, the long struggle against the Catholic Church, and then finally unifying in the 1860s. And then we have a look at the really interesting bit afterwards, where they try and deal with being a young nation. And that really helps people to develop their understanding of how Germany developed and unified as well, because it's happening at the same time. So you can compare and contrast. Of course, it's great because you get to do things like do your own primary research. So have a look at the sources. You get to argue with different historians, not just me, but you do get to argue with historians and have a look at what they think and whether or not you agree with it and explain why. Okay, so if you would like to have a little look at what the papers look like, you can dash on over to the AQA website, and it is paper 1L, History A-Level, is the Germany paper, and 2S is the European paper, and you can download past papers and also download a specification with a list of all of the subtopics that we have a look at too. Or you can have a look on the page on the website that shows you the kind of things that we study in history. So a little challenge for you then, and you're going to have to pause me because I'm going to give the answer straight away. So you have got 6 people here. I want you to have a think about which part of the history course they come from and who they are. So hit pause now. Excellent. Right, you're back. So the first one, hopefully you know who this is. Pretty famous, our first female prime minister, which means she is from the British part of the course. It is Margaret Thatcher. The next one, I'd be really impressed if you got this one. Might have done by process of elimination. He is from the Italian part of the course, and that is Count Camillo Benzi de Cavour, and he was the prime minister of a northern part of Italy called Piedmont. And they he designed the idea of unifying Italy, so it's a really important figure. The next one, you may have guessed from the flag behind. That is Giuseppe Garibaldi, who is part of the Italian course. He's seen as like the hero of Italian unification. He was also a failed poncho salesman, fun fact. But he sort of marched around and inspired people to join the cause. So him and Cavour put Italian unification together, and they're really the main thing that your course is about. D, by process of elimination, may have worked out that is a German. Okay, that is Otto von Bismarck, who, a bit like Cavour in Italy, was sort of the prime minister who put the unified Germany together. Okay, so he's responsible for putting all of those things together and making it a nation. E, you might recognise, okay, that is Winston Churchill, the British part of the course, and he was the prime minister before the course that you look at in World War II, but actually we're really worried about the second time that he is prime minister, which is in 1951, and the way that he sort of continues to modernise the country. And last but not least, we have our newest leader. This is Willy Brandt, who was the Chancellor of West Germany. Okay, so he's from the German part of the course, just before unification, not quite right before unification, but just before unification. And he is sort of responsible for lots of things and was mayor of Berlin in the 60s as well. Okay, so another little task for you to have a think about. I'm just going to move my face out of the way. There we go. So you've got a source here that you can have a think about. So have a pause, read the questions, okay, and then I should tell you all about it. Right, so this, hopefully, you may have actually seen it in a history lesson if you're doing Weimar Germany at the moment. This is about the stab in the back myth. Okay, so this is the new Weimar government led by Philipp Scheidemann and Friedrich Ebert, stabbing the German soldiers in the back, which is what the right wing believed that they'd done. And this kind of myth, this idea that by signing a peace treaty with the Allies, with Britain and France and America and Belgium, was a betrayal of the German army, and actually they could have won. There's loads of stuff going on in this source that I don't have time to talk to you about now. So we've got things like the prospect of a socialist revolution brewing in the East, and you've got sort of destroyed tanks and failed Allied troops. You've got bankers in there behind. You've got the press, all sorts of right-wing myths. This source is really, really good for understanding kind of the place that a lot of Germans were in 1918, immediately following the First World War. So very quickly, I realise I've talked at an incredibly fast pace. If you have any questions, we want to hear from you. We want to see you in September. We want you to join our course. We're really looking forward to meeting you. We wish that we could meet you now. So drop us an email. My email is constance.roach@newcollege.com.